They heard it only once, but it echoed across the cosmos like a scream in the void. On August 15, 1977, a radio telescope in Ohio picked up a narrowband radio signal so precise, so eerily artificial, that it sent chills through the halls of the scientific community. The technician on duty, Dr. Jerry Emmon, was reviewing the night's data when he spotted it. A 72-second burst, rising and falling in intensity, locked on the hydrogen frequency. That number meant everything. Hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe, was considered a logical baseline for interstellar communication. Whatever, or whoever, sent it, knew how to talk in the language of the stars. Dr. Emmon circled the numbers on the printout in red ink and scribbled a single word next to it: wow. To this day, it's known as the WOW signal. But here's what makes it truly disturbing. No known astronomical object or natural phenomenon could have produced it. It wasn't a star. It wasn't a planet. It wasn't static or interference. It was clean, intentional, controlled. And then it was gone. In over 4 decades of searching, it has never been detected again. Not even once. And here's the kicker. It came from the direction of Sagittarius, just above the dense star field near the center of the Milky Way, a place teeming with possibilities. But no stars close enough, no obvious transmitter, just a vast and silent expanse. The data was scrutinized endlessly. Some suggested it could have been a satellite, a terrestrial signal reflected off space debris, or even a military test, but every explanation hit a wall. The telescope had 2 feed horns, like twin ears, scanning the sky. Only one detected the signal, which means it came from a fixed point in space, and it was moving. Earth rotated beneath the sky, and the signal faded exactly as it should if the source was in orbit around something else. But nothing came of the follow-up. In every attempt to revisit the coordinates, the sky was silent, completely, impossibly silent. Then, in the early 2000s, new theories emerged. Some physicists began whispering about the Fermi paradox, the contradiction between the high probability of alien civilizations and the deafening silence of space. "Where is everybody?" Fermi had once asked. The WOW signal, they said, might have been a flare, a momentary pulse from a dying civilization, a beacon lost in the ocean of time, or worse, a message never meant for us. Years passed. Then an unsettling discovery reignited the mystery. In 2016, a team of astronomers proposed a new hypothesis. They pointed to a comet 266P/Christensen that had passed near the region of space where the signal originated. Perhaps, they said, the signal came from the comet's hydrogen envelope. A natural explanation at last. But it didn't hold. The comet was too faint, too distant, and wouldn't have generated such a precise, narrow signal at the exact hydrogen line. And even if it had, why was it never heard again? Which leads us to a darker question. What if it was a message? What if it was received by someone or something else before we even noticed? What if we were never supposed to hear it? And most haunting of all, what if they've been listening ever since? The telescope that captured the WOW signal was dismantled long ago. But the mystery it recorded still lingers, unexplained, unanswered, and echoing through the silence of deep space. And that silence, it's starting to feel unnatural. They told us the skies were quiet, that we've heard nothing, that the cosmos, vast and ancient, is silent by nature. But what if that silence is a carefully constructed illusion? In 2004, a group of U.S. Navy pilots flying over the Pacific Ocean encountered something that shattered their understanding of reality. Their instruments lit up with an object that defied physics. No wings, no propulsion, no heat signature. And yet it moved, erratically, intelligently, with purpose. At speeds and accelerations that made mockery of our most advanced aircraft. It called it the Tic Tac UFO. The footage was declassified years later. A grainy black and white video showing a white oval darting across the sky, faster than any human-made object could. It tilted, it hovered, it rotated midair. Then, in a blink, it vanished. No sonic boom, no trail, just gone. This wasn't a random radar blip or pilot hallucination. It was corroborated by multiple sources. Visual, infrared, and radar systems all agreed. It was real, and no one could explain it. But here's what chilled insiders to the bone. The object seemed to anticipate the pilot's movements. It was as if it knew where they were going before they went there. As if it was watching, studying, playing. And this wasn't an isolated incident. Hundreds of credible sightings, from military personnel to commercial pilots, have poured in over the years, many backed by sensor data and satellite confirmation. Yet every time, there's silence. No follow-up, no answers, just heavily redacted reports, and the sound of doors slamming shut. In 2021, the Pentagon released an official report on what they now call UAPs, Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. Out of 144 cases reviewed, only one had a plausible explanation. The remaining 143, unresolved, not because there wasn't enough evidence, but because the evidence was too compelling and too far outside the realm of human technology. The unspoken message was clear. We're not alone, and someone doesn't want us asking the wrong questions. Now ask yourself, why would governments for decades work so hard to discredit and bury these encounters? Why silence trained pilots? Why threaten whistleblowers? Because acknowledging what's out there doesn't just shift our understanding of science. It threatens everything: our power structures, our religions, our place in the cosmos. But here's the terrifying part. What if these craft aren't visiting? What if they're monitoring, hovering just beyond our reach, slipping in and out of our skies, observing our wars, our weapons, our weaknesses, waiting? And if the Tic Tac was a scout, what's the mothership? The late Dr. James McDonald, one of the most respected atmospheric physicists of the 20th century, once said, "There is no question UFOs are operating in our atmosphere. The question is, what do they want?" That question still haunts intelligence agencies to this day, and somewhere in the unmarked rooms of black-budget programs, buried behind layers of clearance, someone knows. They know the patterns, the orbits, the signatures, the intentions, but they're not talking, because maybe, just maybe, the silence is the only defense we have left. But silence can only hold so long. And when the stars begin to speak again, the question won't be whether we're alone. It'll be whether we're ready, and if they've already decided that answer for us. In 2006, a mysterious signal pierced through the frozen silence of Antarctica, rising not from the sky, but from beneath the ice. The ANITA project, Antarctic Impulsive Transient Antenna, was designed to scan for ultra-high-energy cosmic rays by suspending radio antennas from a balloon drifting high over the continent. It was meant to listen to the universe, not the Earth, but what it captured shouldn't exist. A high-energy particle emerged upward through the solid ice, a path that defied all known laws of physics. Nothing known to man, no particle born from a supernova or black hole should be able to travel that far through the planet and still survive. And yet, there it was, a signal from below. At first, scientists hesitated. Maybe it was an error, anomalous data, but then it happened again and again. And what's worse, when researchers tried to trace the trajectory back to its origin, they found nothing, just endless, ancient ice and silence. Unless, of course, there's something under Antarctica we weren't meant to find. For decades, rumors have swirled around the icy continent. Nazi expeditions during World War II, strange magnetic anomalies, even classified military missions cloaked as scientific research. But most dismissed them as fringe conspiracy. Then came the whisper, unconfirmed but persistent, of a structure, buried 2 miles beneath the ice sheet. Not a cave, not a formation, a geometric object. Smooth, massive, unlike anything found in nature. Satellite imagery was quietly altered. Google Earth blacked out sectors, and anyone who asked too many questions was discredited. In 2016, Buzz Aldrin, the second man to walk on the moon, visited Antarctica. No one understood why. Shortly after, he was medically evacuated under vague circumstances. But not before tweeting, then quickly deleting a cryptic message. "We are all in danger. It is evil itself." What could have shaken a hardened astronaut to the core? In the years since, deep ice radar surveys have been strangely discontinued. Entire areas of Antarctica have been declared off-limits to independent researchers. Why? What are they hiding? One hypothesis emerged, dark, unsettling, and eerily plausible. What if the particle Anita detected wasn't cosmic at all? What if it was communication? A transmission pulsing through layers of ice, or worse, a leak, something breaking containment, something waking up. NASA and other agencies remained quiet, but behind closed doors, panic simmered. Because this signal didn't match any known astrophysical profile, it was structured, patterned, as if it carried information. And deep within the blacked-out corridors of global defense networks, a silent race began, not to discover what the signal meant, but to contain whatever sent it. The implications were staggering. Had an alien presence embedded itself beneath Earth's most desolate frontier? Was Antarctica not just a frozen wasteland, but a veil? And what if we hadn't discovered it at all? What if it allowed itself to be found? Some theorists now believe that the ice wasn't a barrier. It was a warning, a locked door, one we've just started to pry open. And if the ancient cold wasn't keeping us out, but keeping something else in, whatever sleeps beneath Antarctica is older than human memory, older than history. And now, for the first time in millennia, it may no longer be sleeping. They appeared in perfect silence, 9 brilliant orbs hovering in formation above the Arizona desert. March 13, 1997, just past 8 p.m., the skies above Phoenix were clear. Thousands of people, families, police officers, even a state governor, looked up and saw something that defied all logic. Not one craft, but a V-shaped formation stretching over a mile wide, moving slowly, impossibly slowly, across the sky. No engine noise, no rotor blades, no wings, just lights, pulsing, watching. Some said it was like looking at a floating city, and then, just as silently, they vanished. The event would come to be known as the Phoenix Lights, one of the most widely witnessed UFO incidents in history. And despite the government's attempts to bury it beneath dismissive press conferences and hasty explanations, the story refused to fade. At first, the Air Force claimed it was nothing more than flares dropped during a training exercise. But residents pushed back. Flares don't move in formation. They don't stay perfectly spaced. They don't travel across hundreds of miles of sky with synchronized precision. And they definitely don't hover for hours without making a sound. Governor Fife Symington initially laughed it off, until years later when he admitted, under oath, that he had seen the lights too, and he was terrified. But what no one talks about is what happened in the days before the lights. Just south of Nevada, over a stretch of restricted military land known only as Area 51, strange signals were picked up by amateur radio operators. Not just static, not just noise, codes, bursts of data in tight, compressed intervals, followed by dead air. Then came the missing time reports. A truck driver passing through the desert woke up hours later with no memory of how he'd gotten to the other side of the state. A woman in Flagstaff described seeing the lights and then blinking to find herself in her driveway with her groceries melted in her back seat. Local news stations received dozens of these calls and were then told to stop taking them. That same week, NORAD scrambled jets from multiple bases. Not one pilot filed an after-action report. Their flight logs were erased. It's as if the sky itself had been rewritten. Witnesses described a feeling, an impression, as the lights passed overhead. Not fear exactly, but a presence, like being measured, weighed, cataloged. Some experienced nosebleeds. Some suffered vivid dreams. One man claimed he could hear a humming in his teeth for weeks after. No one could explain it. And then came the children. Dozens of kids across Phoenix drew the same thing in class the next morning. A triangular object in the sky, with rows of lights underneath. But in every drawing, something more. A figure standing beneath the craft, tall, thin, eyes like black mirrors. No one told them what to draw. And yet, they all drew the same thing. What if the Phoenix lights were just a flyby? What if they were a test, a dry run, a mass scan of a population? The biggest open sky operation ever conducted on U.S. soil by someone else. The military denied everything, but the silence of a lie is easy to spot when the sky was full of light. And what if, after that night, something never really left? In 2003, as scientists completed the first full sequencing of the human genome, something unexpected surfaced. Hidden deep within the labyrinth of our DNA, among the billions of chemical letters spelling out life, was an anomaly, a pattern, repeating, structured, almost intentional. At first, it was dismissed as coincidence, noise, genetic drift from millennia of evolution, but the closer they looked, the more it resembled something impossible, a code within the code. Dr. Vladimir Cherbak and Dr. Maxim Makukov, two astrobiologists from Kazakhstan, made headlines when they published a controversial theory that parts of our DNA contain mathematical precision far beyond what natural selection could explain. Binary patterns, prime number sequences, even geometric constants like pi. But their most shocking claim? That these patterns might be an embedded message planted not by nature, but by an intelligence beyond Earth. They called it the biological SETI, a signal not sent across space, but written into life itself, a calling card waiting to be found. The scientific community recoiled. Accusations of pseudoscience flew, but the data was there. A statistical anomaly so precise, it begged for a second glance. And behind closed doors, more than a few geneticists were terrified. Because if our DNA carries a message, who put it there and why? Here's what chilled researchers to the core. The patterns weren't just random numeric quirks. They were non-random alignments, always occurring in highly conserved regions of the genome, places that haven't changed in millions of years. As if protected, preserved, hidden in plain sight. And then came the eerie twist. In 2010, a separate research team discovered what they called junk DNA, sequences that don't code for proteins, behaving strangely under electromagnetic stimulation. When subjected to certain frequencies, these sequences began to react, as if responding to a signal. They lit up. The implications were staggering. Was it possible that human DNA isn't just a blueprint, but a receiver? A biological antenna designed to wait centuries, millennia, for a call to be answered. And what if that call has already begun? Whistleblowers from deep black bioengineering programs began leaking fragments, mentions of reverse-coded proteins, spontaneous gene activation in remote populations, children born with inexplicable cognitive leaps, precise memory, unteachable languages, abstract logic beyond their years. The term whispered inside intelligence circles, the awakening protocol, a rumored belief that when humanity reaches a certain level of scientific maturity, the embedded message will activate. Not in satellites, not in computers, but in us, in our cells, in our blood. A cosmic safeguard or a countdown. Religious leaders panicked. Governments rushed to clamp down on genome access. CRISPR labs were audited. Independent gene hackers went missing. One was found dead in a Berlin subway, clutching a flash drive filled with encrypted genome files and a single line of text. It's not ours. Because here's the terrifying possibility. What if humanity didn't evolve alone? What if we were seeded, planted like cosmic spores by a civilization so ancient we mistake their science for divinity. And the greatest question of all, what if that civilization isn't gone? What if they've just been waiting for their children to wake up? And the genome, the very core of who we are, isn't just evidence of our creation. It's a lock. And somewhere in the darkness of the stars, the key is already turning. In 2017, a strange object entered our solar system and left just as quickly. Astronomers first detected it via the Pan-STARRS telescope in Hawaii. It was long, cigar-shaped, tumbling erratically and moving far too fast to be from our system. They named it ʻOumuamua, a Hawaiian word meaning scout or messenger from afar arriving first. At first, scientists assumed it was just a comet, but it didn't behave like one. It didn't emit gas or dust. It accelerated as it left the sun's gravity, without any known propulsion. It rotated in a way that defied normal space physics. Its surface reflected light strangely, almost like polished metal, and it came from a direction that no known natural object had ever traveled from before. Dr. Avi Loeb, a Harvard astrophysicist, broke rank. He proposed something radical. What if ʻOumuamua wasn't a rock, but a probe? A solar sail, perhaps. A drifting remnant of an ancient alien civilization. A device, sent not with malice, but with purpose. To watch, to listen, or worse, to return. And perhaps it wasn't the first. Across ancient cultures, myths speak of sky gods and beings from the stars who arrived in flaming chariots or glowing discs. Cave drawings in Australia, Africa, and South America depict figures with large heads, black eyes, and strange objects in the sky, thousands of years before flight ever existed. In Mesopotamia, the Sumerians told of the Anunnaki, deities who came from a distant world to shape mankind. The Dogon tribe of Mali knew about Sirius B, a star invisible to the naked eye, long before modern telescopes could confirm its existence. They said they were taught this knowledge by visitors from the stars. Even the Great Pyramid of Giza aligns perfectly with the stars of Orion's belt, not just symbolically, but with astronomical precision that would require modern surveying tools. We've dismissed these stories as mythology. But what if they're memories? Faded echoes of a time when Earth was not alone? What if humanity is not the pinnacle of intelligence on this planet, but the reboot? Civilizations rise, civilizations fall, but some knowledge is never truly lost. It waits, buried, fragmented, embedded. In 2018, seismologists detected vast, unnatural structures buried deep beneath the Earth's crust. Massive, continent-sized anomalies that don't match any known geological process. Some suggest they could be remnants of something else, a forgotten epoch, erased by cataclysm or design. Because here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. We are not the beginning of the story. We are a continuation. And somewhere in the vast timeline of the universe, someone came before us. Maybe they left Earth willingly. Maybe they left warnings behind, whispers in our DNA, lights in the sky, artifacts in the ice. Or maybe they never truly left, and the WOW signal, the Tic-Tac crafts, the Phoenix lights, they're not isolated events. They're breadcrumbs, clues in a larger puzzle, a long-forgotten map leading back to a truth we're only just beginning to face. We are not alone. We never were. And now, for the first time in thousands of years, we're remembering. So the question is no longer, are we alone? The question is, what happens when they return? Or worse, what if they already have? And they're waiting for us to remember who we are.